So, as you can see, today's video is starting off a little different than normal. We're not looking at Blender. We're looking at a roll of tape, some shiny ribbon, and a piece of paper. So our goal is to make a train wheel that turns the correct speed in relation to the train moving along the track. If it's moving too slow or too fast, it's not going to look correct. Our brain will process and see that's not turning the way that it should. So before we get into Blender and we get into some complex math that I hopefully will make pretty easy for you, I want you to understand what we're trying to do. So let's pretend like this is the train wheel and this is the length of the train track. And I just have this at 32 centimeters. You'll notice on the train wheel, the roll of tape, I have a little mark. I have two marks, but this one that has a little rectangle above it. This is our starting point. So as I roll this, the wheel is turning and it's leaving behind some shiny paper. So when we get to 32, what's happened is that this roll of tape has went all the way around one time. So if you're not familiar with math and circles, a circle has 360 degrees. That means that you have to turn it 360 degrees to get it back to its starting point. For our train wheel, that means that when the train wheel turns 360 degrees, it's going to go this distance. The outside of the circle, if you roll it out flat like I've just done, is 32 centimeters. So what that means for us, if we have a train track that's 32 centimeters and a wheel this size, that this wheel has to turn 360 degrees. It has to turn one full time to get to the end. Now, if we had the same size roll of tape, but our train track was longer, let's say it was 64, then this would have to turn around two complete times, or 720 degrees. If we had a train track that was 96 centimeters, which is three times this length, it would have to turn three whole times, which would be 1080 degrees. If our train track was four times as long, at 128 centimeters, this would have to rotate four times, which is 1440 degrees. So understanding this concept is what we're going to use to set up some set up some geometry nodes that will help this wheel turn. So with that, hopefully kind of in your mind, we're going to switch to Blender and start setting all this up. Okay, so here we are in Blender, and we're going to start by modeling a very simple wheel shape, just so we can set everything up and test it. And then later we can switch that out with the wheel that you have on your train. So we're just going to hit Shift A and add a mesh circle. And I'm just going to look at this from the top by hitting number pad 7. I'm going to switch into edit mode. Oops, I added the wrong type of circle. I need to add a mesh circle. So make sure you do add a mesh circle, not a curved circle. So when you go into edit mode, you should have vertices. And once you have this and you're in edit mode, hit A to select all of it, E to extrude, S to scale, and pull it in until you have a circle in the middle. Now, with this circle still selected, I'm going to press G and just off-center it up to the side. And this will allow us to see if it's turning correctly, because if it's in the center, we're not going to have a reference to see how it's turning. So we're just going to put this off to the side, so that way when it rotates, we can see that circle moving, and our brains can have a reference point to the speed at which it's turning. Let's go ahead and rotate this on the x-axis 90. And to make our life simpler, let's hit Control A and apply the rotation. And let's press N to open our side panel. And what we're looking at is the scale and the dimensions. Now, for whatever reason, dimensions are not numbers that you can access in geometry nodes. You can only access the scale number. And part of the math we're doing, we have to know how tall or how wide the circle is. That's called the diameter, the distance from one side straight across to the other. To make this work, we're going to change the dimensions of our circle so that it's 1 by 1. Now, when you have your train wheel, it's going to have some thickness, and we'll just make sure that all these numbers are the same, but we'll go over that when we get to that point. But for now, I'm going to put all the scale numbers at 0.5, which makes the dimensions 1. Now let's hit Control A and apply the scale. So now the scale number matches the dimensions. So if I make it a wheel that's 2 units in diameter, then the scale will reflect that. Now, it's very important that we do not apply the scale. We want the scale number to reflect the dimensions. So for now, we're just going to leave the scale of all of these at 1, and then we can set up the math. And then later, when you have your train wheel, if you need to change the scale, it will all update correctly. Okay, let's go ahead and close the property shelf for now. And let's go ahead and select our Train Zero engine. And real quick, let's go ahead and name our circle temporary. I'm just going to put temp wheel, just so I know it's a temporary wheel object. And let's go back and select our cube. And I'm looking at the constraint settings. And I'm going to click the eyeball to turn that off so that it's over here at the center. So now I'm just going to look above, grab my wheel and move it to the side of my cube for the Train Zero engine. With that selected, I'm going to select the wheel first, then shift select the empty cube, press Control P, and we're going to parent. So that way, when this goes back to the track, the wheel is going to go with it. So we're going to unhide the follow path constraint, and our wheel is there with our cube. Now you'll notice that it is facing the wrong way, which may happen when we are working with your train. So to fix that, we're just going to change the forward axis of the cube to X, and I'm going to do -X because that will hopefully face the wheel or have the wheel on the outside as it goes around the track. So I'm just going to stop the animation and go back to frame 1. And this will allow us to set this up and make sure it looks like it's moving correctly. Let's go ahead and do one more thing before we actually start. Let's go ahead and hide the follow path again. And let's add the camera back to our scene. And I think if we just press number pad 1, that will put us looking at the front. We're going to move the camera to this view by hitting Control Alt number pad 0. And I'm just going to grab this and line it up so that the cube is roughly in the center of the camera view. Now we're going to parent the camera to the cube. That way, when we play the animation, we can look through the camera and look at the wheel turning consistently instead of watching the train go around the track, and it makes it a little bit easier sometimes. So make sure your camera is selected. You can do it in the outliner or click on this outline, then shift select the cube, press Control P, and parent object. Now we can turn follow path back on, and then when we hit play, the camera stays locked to it, and we can see the grid is the thing kind of spinning as behind the in the background. So I'm going to pause that, and let's go ahead and jump over to geometry nodes. And I think I'll probably just stop this video so you have this segment to get you to this point, and then the next video we'll actually get into the geometry nodes just to break it up.